and the racetrack was a part of our lives for the entire time he lived here, for better and worse. I knew about his habit when we fell in love, but it got out of control and almost ruined us several times. In the end, it did ruin us. And then he won almost 1 million krona and just disappeared. Ilka lifted an eyebrow. Well, we do know he went to America. Her mother nodded. Presumably, he continued gambling over there, and we never heard from him again. That is, until now, of course. Ilka shook her head. Right, now that he's dead. What I'm trying to say is that we don't know what he's left behind. Could be up to his neck in debt. You're a school photographer, not a millionaire. If you go over there, they might hold you responsible for his debts. And who knows? Maybe they wouldn't allow you to come home. Your father had a dark side he couldn't control. I'll rip his dead body limb from limb if he pulls you down with him. All these years after turning his back on us. With that, her mother stood and walked down the long hall into the kitchen. Ilka heard muffled voices, and then Hanna appeared in the doorway. Would you like us to drive you to the airport? Hanna leaned against the doorframe as Ilka's mother reappeared with a tray of bakery rolls, which she set down on the coffee table. No, that's okay, Ilka said. How long do you plan on staying? Hanna asked, moving to the sofa. Ilka's mother curled up in the corner of the sofa, covered herself with a blanket, and put her stockinged feet up on Hanna's lap. When her mother began living with Hanna 14 years ago, the last trace of her bitterness finally seemed to evaporate. Now, though, Ilka realized it had only gone into hibernation. For the first 4 years after Ilka's father left, her mother had been stuck with Paul Jensen's funeral home and its 2 employees, who cheated her whenever they could get away with it. Throughout Ilka's childhood, her mother had complained constantly about the burden he had dumped on her. Ilka hadn't known until now that her father had also left a sizable gambling debt behind. Apparently, her mother had wanted to spare her, at least to some degree. And of course, her mother was right. Her father was a coward and a selfish jerk. Yet Ilka had never completely accepted his abandonment of her. He had left behind a short letter saying he would come back for them as soon as everything was taken care of, and that an opportunity had come up in Chicago. Several years later, after complete silence on his part, he wanted a divorce, and that was the last they'd heard from him. When Ilka was a teenager, she found his address, or at least an address where he had once lived. She'd kept it all these years in a small red treasure chest in her room. Surely it won't take more than a few days, Ilka said. I'm planning to be back by the weekend. I'm booked up at work, but I found someone to fill in for me the first 2 days. It would be a great help if you two would keep trying to get hold of Niels from North Zealand Photography. He's in Stockholm, but he's supposed to be back tomorrow. I'm hoping he can cover me for the rest of the week. All the shoots are in and around Copenhagen. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish over there? Hanna asked. Well, they say I'm in his will, and that I have to be there in person to prove I'm Paul Jensen's daughter. I just don't understand why this can't be done by email or fax, her mother said. You can send them your birth certificate and your passport, or whatever it is they need. It seems that copies aren't good enough. If I don't go over there, I'd have to go to an American tax office in Europe, and I think the nearest one is in London. But this way, they'll let me go through his personal things and take what I want. Artie Sorvino from Jensen Funeral Home in Racine has offered to cover my travel expenses if I go now, so they can get started with closing his estate. Ilka stood in the middle of the living room, too anxious and restless to sit down. Racine? Hanna asked. Where's that? She picked up her steaming cup and blew on it. A bit north of Chicago, in Wisconsin. I'll be picked up.